Hello and welcome to this tutorial on how to start making games with meaning. So, games are an incredibly powerful tool and a great way to explore self-expression as a creator. They give us the opportunity to connect with our players and to share experiences with them, or maybe share narratives that explore certain ideas or philosophies around different topics that might be affecting us day to day. For this game, as my scenario example, I have been working within the Luck Machine and Furnish tutorial, and I've just expanded it a little bit. And I've chosen the theme of sustainability and the environment, and thinking about how I can explore those themes in a game. It doesn't need to be a long game, it doesn't need to be a big game, but just taking that as kind of a starting point is a really interesting way to sort of look at mechanics, narrative, and aesthetic. It doesn't necessarily have to be something like environment and sustainability. It can be whatever interests you. So whatever thing you want to say to the world, whether it's talk about diversity and inclusion, or whether it's something that's happened to you, a story that you might want to share, a funny situation, or just throwing ragdolls around. Whatever you want to do to make people laugh and to have a good time. Whatever you want to do, games are kind of an opportunity for you to express yourself or to share madness and make funny things. So with sustainability in the environment, I wanted to think about the mechanic, narrative, and aesthetic. So the mechanic is what the player does in the game. The narrative is the story the game tells, and that includes things like the setting and who the player is and what they're trying to do and all that sort of stuff. And the aesthetic, which kind of feeds off of the narrative and then builds in its own design around the game world. So when it comes to the mechanic of a game to do with sustainability in the environment, I thought it'd be really fun to make just a really simple interaction which shoots a cork into that chimney. Now I could make this a little bit more complicated and have buttons which move the cork shooter left and right and try and aim it, but for the purposes of this tutorial I've kept it really, really simple, and you just have to press interact with this and it fires the cork. So once I decided on that mechanic, then I approached the theming of this. So the theme was already kind of established when I made this Luck Machine as like a post-apocalyptic factory type thing. And so I've really tried to sell that in this iteration by adding a lot more mini stories around the game environment. So for example, we have this train over here, which looks like it's crashed into the wall. And I've kind of built on that by adding some more bricks and, I've twisted the train, and you'll see when I play the game, or if I press F6, you'll see that there's fires and things like that and fiery sounds going on over here. And so really trying to build up that this train has crashed within the game, into the factory for some reason. We don't know why. And so that's like almost like a mini story in itself. And it's kind of talking maybe a little bit about the environment and sustainability there, but it's more like it could be a mystery. It could be a major part of the game, like why is that train crash there? Or it could just be like a little side mission that you find out by, I don't know, going behind this coal over here and discovering a note that says, oh, the train's crashed or whatever. So like adding a little bit more to that story. But it just being a moment can add a lot to your game world. Just thinking about why these things are here. So, for example, having this machine here just on its own might look a little bit weird. So adding other machines that have clearly fallen apart or gone rusted or are now in disrepair gives it a little bit more believability that actually this is just one machine amongst a whole bunch of machines that, and fortunately this one still works. It's called a luck machine. That adds a little bit of mystery, just the word luck, but also the fact that why is it here? Why is there a luck machine? Was it a luck machine before this apocalypse happened, or has it been repurposed as a luck machine now? Giving players the opportunity to explore the environment and learn something about the environment if they choose to. They don't have to, but it adds a little bit more depth and intrigue. Another moment is this one over here where there's these clocks, and I haven't really explored this at all. I just thought it would be interesting if the time of day to do with the furnace might be some sort of parallel or interesting thing that, you know, maybe there's someone that lives here and they need to start the furnace at a certain time and they're really worried about remembering that. And that's just from playing around with clocks and gears and adding them to this part here. So it's not really been explored. So this could be a mystery that is never solved in my game, but it'd be really fun to take this clock situation over here and just experiment and maybe wrap a little bit of a mini narrative around it that adds a little bit more color to this scene. Now, that's all well and good, and that's the kind of the visual storytelling and some of the aesthetic side of this game world that I'm making. But let me draw you back to the objective of the game, which was to fire that cork into that chimney and just provoke some thoughts and ideas around sustainability and the environment. The way to the cork, I've tried to make it a little bit like a puzzle game. So this area is very bright and will bring the player's attention. And this area has a lamp and a light. And I'm hoping that, and it's kind of framed between this light and this electric box. I'm kind of hoping that that catches the player's eye and they head in this direction. So they can either go through there or they might want to investigate the train. And then when they get to the end, they can actually hit this door. And then I've made a little pathway that's trying to lead the player up there. I've used things that aren't actual barriers, but they're psychological barriers. Like this being across here is telling the player, you don't need to go this way. And players who play a lot of games will read that and understand that. But similarly, they might read that and say, oh, there must be a secret over here because it's trying to tell me not to go this way. And then that's up to you as a game designer. Do you choose to encourage that behavior or and offer rewards and secrets? Or do you choose to just put a invisible cheese wall behind there and then players will stop second guessing whether a route is intended. So this little pathway leads to the top of this, and I'm hoping that it'll be quite clear what you might need to do as a player to interact with this box. So the mechanic is really just a very simple one button press. The narrative is kind of involved in all these mini stories that are going on, and you'll see the robot moving around in a minute and we'll explore what that might be talking about. And the aesthetics is really pulling in this idea that this is a factory, it's fallen into disrepair for whatever reason, and it's not a recent thing. So if you look at this wall, there's some voxels with greenery on them, and it's obviously the wall's been smashed down by the train, but they're voxels with they're bricks with greenery on them too. So that clearly didn't happen yesterday for that amount of growth to have occurred. Let's explore the game. So I'm gonna run it now, and I'll talk through the experience. So you'll notice straight away that the color grading, I've moved down to like a noir color grading to make it feel very urban and a little bit sad. I've added sad music, which you might be able to hear. And then also I'm using a different voxel mesh. This voxel mesh is very much concrete and gravel and things like that. So as the player, I spot these signs that are kind of leading me in this direction. And from here, you can see that when I arrive in this dilapidated factory, definitely the first thing that's drawing my eye is this area over here. And that's actually quite nice because this robot is performing a task that is kind of a major part of the narrative, where the robot is triggering this luck machine over here, collecting whatever item comes out of the luck machine, and then taking it over to the fire and just burning it, and then just repeatedly doing that. So it's kind of like there's a lot of meaning wrapped up in that, just that motion there, which is, to do with fires and burning rubbish and all sorts of stuff there. And also but I'm not like specifically saying to the player, with a script, this is what's happening. So that gives the player the opportunity to interpret it how they want to. Maybe it will prompt the same thoughts that happen in my head, or maybe it'll prompt completely different thoughts. And as an art form, that's totally okay. It's okay to have whatever reaction you have to these experiences. And as a creator, that's just really exciting that people can have all these different reactions to the same thing. You know, I know what I'm trying to say, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's what players hear. So if we go around here and follow this pathway up, which I hope my level design will tempt the player towards doing, it gives the player a nice vista, so overlooking the dilapidated factory, and they can see what's going on here. They can see in a bit more detail that the stairs have fallen into disrepair. And this looks very much like something that you might want to press at this point. So maybe walking up to this and interacting with it. Shoots the cork into the air. The cork blocks the chimney and all the greenery comes back. And the fire's gone out and the robot stopped doing its meaningless task. And yeah, now it looks like the jungle is reclaiming the factory. If we go out here, we can see there's a lot more colour and more greenery. The noir setting's been turned off. And the idea is that the sad burning things state has now been replaced with a much more calm and much more vibrant lifestyle. And so behind all of that is this idea that maybe caring for the environment is a good thing, put out the fires, you know, that kind of stuff, but without specifically saying it to a player, and more kind of telling the player through a game, the aesthetics, the narrative, and the mechanic, and exploring the same theme through all of those things, reinforcing each other, and hopefully leading the player to an experience that you want to give them. Hopefully this has been an interesting tutorial on approaching how to make games with meaning. If you're not sure how to start, just think about if you were on a stage, what would be the thing that you wanted to say to everyone? Would you tell a joke? Would you try and persuade everyone to live a certain way or believe a certain thing? It's completely up to you. And I look forward to seeing what you do with your games in Crayta.